Hi, everyone. I think it's my great honor to welcome Dr. Flávio Azevedo, Fulbright Fellow and Postdoctoral Fellow at Cambridge University, who is going to present Embedding Open and Reproducible Science into Teaching and Mentoring with FORRT. Now, let me hand over this to him.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see the slides. Beautiful. So first and foremost, my name is Flávio Azevedo. I'm a member of FORRT, the Framework for Open and Reproducible Research Training. And on behalf of the FORRT community, I'm delighted to be here today and have the opportunity to present and introduce to you our community and discuss the initiatives that we have been developing. I want to give a special shout out to Open Applied Linguistics, this amazing community, and thank you for having us. And today I'll present Embedding Open and Reproducible Science into Teaching and Mentoring. All right, so I'll get right to it. So first and foremost, we want to talk about the problem, what it is that we're trying to solve. Why am I doing my presentation today? So basically the idea is that teaching and mentoring of open scholarship, but especially the transmission from researchers to researchers, as well as to students and future consumers of science, has received little attention, especially comparatively to other parts of open scholarship. So it is still very common that researchers are not aware of open scholarship, but also that students leave the educational pipeline, higher education, without ever hearing about better research practices, reproducibility, pre-registration, and so forth. It's less and less common, but when we founded the organization, definitely that was the case. Yeah. So in any case, we have thought in 2018 that for us to really achieve what is considered to be a scientific utopia, that is to say, to have the science that we envisioned, we would need a fourth pillar, right? So what is scientific utopia? So the Center for Open Science has defined it as basically a way for us to achieve our intended goals as a community. So their mission is to increase integrity, reproducibility, and openness in research. And they propose these three guiding principles that everybody here should be familiar with to kind of steer our best practices towards that ideal, that Shangri-La of sorts. So the first one is open scientific communication. The second is restructuring incentives to promote better scientific practices, as well as truth over publishability of findings. And the third is crowdsourcing science to promote large-scale collaboration and, for example, team science, citizen science, and to accelerate scientific progress, right? So we suggested in 2018 that there may be a fourth principle towards that scientific utopia, which is familiarizing students as well as researchers, so that educational side of things, with the tenets of open scholarship. So in this effort, we founded the organization that we call FORRT, Framework for Open Reproducible Research Training. So we were founded in 2018. We're now composed of about 250 scholars. We represent several different fields: psychology, neuroscience, communication science, linguistics, mathematics, computer science, etc. But importantly, we are a volunteer-based organization. And to date, all projects have been completed without funding. Therefore, any funds that we are trying to acquire now would go to driving impact, maximizing impact, and ensuring the sustainability of our work. We receive about 100 visits a day, and we have quite a few testimonials that is or should be on our impacts page. So what are FORRT goals? So FORRT main goals are to build together with educators a path towards incremental adoption of principal education. So that's basically improve our teaching towards explaining science or teaching science or scientific facts to students by the processes by which information was acquired, right? Rather than just teaching the facts of science. And we contextualize that within the open scholarship framework. And the second is to generate a conversation about the ethics and social impact of higher education that is focused on openness, epistemic certainty, and research credibility. So very much what our previous speaker, Mehdi Ponwal, said, interrogating the questions that are being asked and making sure that we are very aware of the social justice implications of scientific norms. And third, as FORRT goal, we intend to respond to calls to consider open science. We like to speak of open scholarship, but open science as inclusive science, as inclusive scholarship. And we also try to promote a discussion about the perceived importance of different academic activities. So think of how research or publishing research or doing research tends to be overvalued to the detriment of teaching, mentoring, service. And we also, in that line, advocate for institutional recognition of educational resources. So I'll present to you today some of our advocating initiatives here. So I'll talk about what FORRT has accomplished so far, but they basically it's basically about the open educational resources that we produce. So what are open educational resources? Well, they are dynamic, easy to incorporate educational resources that are also fair, so that's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. They also have something to say about our science and how we do them, so it's meta-scientific, and we use approaches of team science, citizen science to achieve our goals in our open educational resources. All right. So I'll start with our first resource. We call it the clusters or the FORRT clusters, and it's part of our pedagogical genetic framework to understand open science or open scholarship. So we thought that in the very beginning of FORRT that students of open science, but also those who are students, meaning researchers as well, they need to make a sense of the literature across several fields and be informed about ongoing and often dynamic debates. So this is a tall task for most. So we sought to develop a sort of a solution that may mitigate the time effects or these unburdening aspects that are related to get acquainted with all this literature. And so we draw the expertise of about 50 experts in the community. And this is dynamic, of course, to provide educators with a comprehensive but we hope straightforward, accessible framework of open scholarship. So this is the FORRT clusters. It's a comprehensive literature review guided by pedagogical considerations. So hopefully this is a pathway towards incremental adoption of open scholarship into the way that we educate each other, we transmit knowledge across ourselves. So for example, FORRT clusters has 7 clusters, and we have subclusters as well. So for example, for the cluster number 1, reproducibility crisis and credibility revolution, we have subdivided this major dimension into history, analysis, questionable research practices and their prevalence, proposed improvement initiatives on statistics, measurement, teaching, data sharing, code sharing, pre-registration, replication, and so on. And also a subsection on ongoing debates, think of incentives for and against open science. And I again refer to Mary Cornwall's talk just previously, as well as ethical considerations for improved practices, right? Interrogating the questions that are driving our research. So this is just an example of visual representation of our FORRT clusters. And you can see that there is a description of what the cluster aimed to achieve. So this is, in this case, it's our third cluster, reproducible analysis. And you can also see, let me just get the pointer here. You can also see the subclusters here. And once you go to our website and you click, there is a reading list as well as links. And so as an overview, this is our visual representation of the FORRT clusters that, we hope it's useful. It accompanies the reading list, and it's constantly being updated. And also it counts with feminist thought, qualitative research, and we're trying to constantly give the FORRT clusters the benefit of having other perspectives coming into it. All right. So another FORRT initiative is the FORRT glossary. And we thought that as the landscape of scholarship evolves and scholars and educators are constantly changing their vocabulary, updating their knowledge, we thought of coming up with a sort of an access point where those wishing to learn about open science terminology would have a one-stop place to learn about, oh, what does this mean? Like harking or terms that might be even discipline specific, right? So it's an ongoing initiative to the extent that it's a dynamic initiative. People can, it is open for feedback as well, but everything that we agreed upon is on the website, and we have a publication that is now on Nature Human Behavior, and this is our URL. But basically the idea is that we made a compendium of open scholarship terminologies, we clarify them, and we also compared whenever we are using the same terms, for example, external validity, or of course, replicability and reproducibility, which are terms that are widely used differently across sciences. And this was a crowdsourced initiative. About 112 people took part in, and we defined together 250 terms, a little bit more if I'm not mistaken. And now in the second stage or phase 2 of this project, we are also gathering participation, so you can participate as well in defining terms and helping us get better definitions. We are defining additional 250 items, and we already have about 50 more people trying to help us. All right, so this is how it looks like on the website, just a visual representation that has a definition. This is a particularly small one, but we make a point to link it to other related terms. We also give references because this is super important, and also give credit to people who helped us with this definition. All right, so the next initiative that I'm going to present is the FORRT summaries. And this initiative is to help those folks wishing to get familiar or stay up to date with the literature. They can do so in little bits, right? So we prepared about 200 summaries of academic articles related to open scholarship on several topics that range from all the clusters basically, right? So if it fits the cluster, we are trying to summarize it. So every summary contains an article abstract, the main takeaways, a quote, and suggestion for similar articles. We particularly worked on this metadata to link articles to one another so folks can sort of follow a thread. And we also make the point that We separate everything that is science and research related from the social justice and open diversity, equity, and inclusion side of things. So we basically have two prongs in the project summaries. It's a really cool project, and we have a manuscript in preparations now and should be shared with the community in about hopefully 20 days to 30 days. All right. The next project is the FORRT lesson plans. So the idea, again, is to encumber educators and provide them with one-stop shop for them to just find materials for them to educate others, right? So when people are informed about it, or they have to educate others, whether these are, trainers or educating other scholars, giving a presentation or teaching students, they can come to FORRT lesson plans, and we provide 9 evidence-based high quality lesson plans, and we provide also 60 activities that people can do. So the lesson plans are more like 60 to 90 minutes activities, are very organized, and the class activities is more anything from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. So, you can pick and choose whatever works for you and for your particular use. All right, so we published this at Teaching and Learning Psychology, and you can find this at forrt.org/lesson plans. A final point on this is that we are making a hackathon at ZIPS now, and in just a few weeks, and we're going to expand the lesson plans quite a bit. So that's our hope, and I hope you can use it and can help. All right, so another FORRT initiative is the Reversals and Replication Initiative, and basically we're trying to list all replications that we are aware. It's a dynamic project as well, in the sense that you can collaborate, and we list successful and failed replications, which are quite important for informing teaching and mentoring, but also so that there is an uptake into replications being used in thesis projects, whether that is bachelor, master's, or even PhD projects. So we try to list those replications. So I'll just show you what this looks like. So here on the left, you have, for example, for social psychology, you have elderly priming, and what is the status? So looking at the evidence, we see more or less where the evidence that we currently have are heading towards. So we list the original work, the critiques, and replications. And every time you click on this box, for example, for distance priming, the information about distance priming replications would open up. And this is on your right is the table of contents. So we have quite a few disciplines and subdisciplines, and we are in partnership with other organizations, so to include things on economic behavior and other sciences. All right, so another FORRT initiative that is also important is what we call the FORRT Impact on Students initiative. So we use a sort of a team science approach. We had 75 collaborators worldwide that together review and synthesize the evidence that investigate the impact of open scholarship on students. So we were interested exactly on, we're talking about integrating open scholarship all the time in mentoring, teaching, or training of scholars, but to what extent there's empirical evidence that actually tells us that this is a good thing, right? So what is the impact of teaching open and reproducible science on students' outcomes? And we define outcomes basically on 3 dimensions. So scientific literacy is the first dimension, and that relates to knowledge, skills, competencies related to science, attitudes related to both scientific culture and doing science. So think of pre-registration, understanding statistics, reproducing analysis with open data, enhanced understanding of research methods, and so on. Then our second impact that we looked at is student engagement. So everything that deals with enjoyment of learning, future research behaviors, concentration, effort into learning. So think of, just seeing yourself as being a researcher, looking or enjoyment of looking at real data, etc. So the third cluster is attitudes towards science. So that's I guess the easiest to understand, perceptions of science and trusting science, feelings about science, and so forth. So what are the consequences of bringing open scholarship topics to attitudes towards science? So I won't spoil the results. You can read all about it at FORRT.org/impact or in our preprint right there. All right. Another initiative that we are working on is the Neurodiversity Project. And first, let me define what neurodiversity is. It's the non-pathological variation in human brain, and it regards sociability, learning, attention, mood, mental functions in general, right? So we think at FORRT that neurodiversity has received little to no attention in open scholarship discussions, but also more general in academia. And this project has some specific aims. We aim to combine, first of all, and try to sort of learn from both, compare and contrast the neurodiversity movement or the precepts of neurodiversity movement and open scholarship. And we do so to empower underrepresented scholars, in this case, the neurodiversity folks. And we will do that in two ways. First, we'll create a database of research conducted by neurodivergent researchers, as well as a database of neurodivergent researchers. So their research and themselves, depending, we want to allow both, as well as writing a position statement that we hope sort of brings attention to the neurodiversity cause. So in this position statement, we try to explain that neurodiversity is fundamental to the understanding of human behavior and cognition. And we argue that neurodivergent individuals are often stigmatized, devalued, and often objectified. And we try to present causes for that as well, and examples. We also present the perspectives of the neurodivergent authors that are part of this team, who have a lot of lived experience. And we discuss how research and academia can and should improve in terms of its treatment of neurodiversity folks, especially when it comes to inclusivity and diversity. So the authors in this position statement describe systematic barriers, issues of disclosure, what happens when you say, oh, I'm neurodiverse, I'm an ADHD, or I'm dyslexic, or I'm autistic, and so forth. We also talk about the intersection between neurodiversity and open scholarship, and provide recommendations that hopefully can lead to personal and systemic changes towards the acceptance of neurodivergent folks in academia. And this is just two of our sideline outputs. On your left, you see a picture of how neurodivergence is related to, in an intersectional way, related to not only disability and mental health, but also age, gender, race and ethnicity, caring duties, language, citizenship, and so forth. And on your right, you have the academic view of privilege that we used in our neurodiversity position statement to define authorship. So we're also interrogating the rules and norms that we have in open scholarship to define things like authorship. And we do so by this academic view of privilege. So the more privilege you have, the less let me put it the other way. The less privilege you have, the more in the front of the publication you are. And we think that that's a very good way or alternative way to decide authorship as well, given that a lot in FORRT is has a crowdsource aspect to it, or a team science aspect to it, and the contributions are fairly equal among writers. All right, so I'll move on to our next pedagogy, and this is more on the side of advocacy. So FORRT has this project called Pedagogies, which we try to elevate excellent education. So it's a collection of exemplary instances of principal education. And for example, we did our first pedagogy with Julia Strand, an amazing scholar and an amazing educator. And what we did was to do an interview and ask Julia Strand on how she was able to pull off one of the best rated reproducibility classes called Psychology's Credibility Revolution. It is an amazing resource. And as part of the pedagogy, she shared her syllabus completely, all course materials. There is a video and course technicals, meaning everything that you need to replicate the teaching that she was able to do, and a little interview to explain perspectives and also details. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about just some shorter, in a way, resources that are, just something that I believe a lot of open scholarship initiatives have, which are just smaller contributions, but hopefully that can make an impact as well. So for example, we have the curated resources. So now we have about 1,200 submitted resources in our database, and we have a team that goes through submitted resources. By the way, you can submit in a direct link here, and we try to enrich them with code words, keywords, and metadata, and so that whenever you use the search text, you're more able to find whatever you're looking for. So these are our curated resources, and as you can expect, FORRT.org/resources. It's quite nifty, and if you click on the card, there's more details. It's quite nice. The other one is FORRT syllabus. So we envisioned that with the FORRT clusters as well, we could provide a syllabus that is ready to be edited and adapted by educators directly into their course. So we prepared a seminar series of about 9 weeks of teaching open scholarship based on FORRT clusters, and we are always increasing, adapting that literature with new literature. And, we provide the GDoc so you can just download and adapt it. And we have some instances of that, which is very nice. And we also list about, I want to say 100 other open science syllabi. So if you look at ours and you say, look, I want to find another one, or I want to syllabi specifically on pre-registration, there's about 100 others that you can take a look at. Finally, I wanted to tell you about more or less how ideas come to reality at FORRT. So, just like to share a little bit about the process. So first of all, anyone at FORRT can propose new ideas. So if you join our community, or if you're willing to join, or if you're willing to conduct a project, you're welcome to do so. This is done in one channel created at our Slack with a specific purpose, and it's called Team Ideas, right? So our community is in there. You go there, you propose your idea, and if it's sound and approved and fulfilling the ethos of social justice, openness, it's has precepts for diversity, etc. It gets assigned to a project leader who will execute these ideas. So it could be yourself as well. Usually it's the proposer of the idea, of course. So the idea is then shared in FORRT Slack channel as well as in social media, and we create a new channel specific to that project to facilitate communication and exchange. And anybody else in the community can join to that channel specifically where announcements, news, etc. are shared there. Over time, we hold meetings to advance the project, oversee its progress, division of tasks, etc. And when the project is ready or close to ready, we add it to our website to ensure it's findable by others, but also to maximize impact. And we, again, spread the word on social media. And some projects then enter a new phase, which we call, and I mentioned this quite a few times, dynamic stage, where people or the project is in constant improvement. We think that stable resources are not very useful, not only because of the time, but also because open scholarship is such a fast evolving science or research area, and needs to be dynamic. And in the end, we try to write an output so that there's a publication there, or multiple publications. So there's a few projects that would have 2-3 publications at least planned, and and that's about it. Thank you so much. I would like to conclude this presentation by saying that FORRT has many other initiatives. So please check our website, namely our educational nexus. And if you're interested in discovering more initiatives, we have social justice initiatives. So if you are very knowledgeable in open scholarship, for example, you can mentor somebody who's looking to be mentored, a student, a mentee. And if you are a mentee that wants to be mentored in the topics of open scholarship, you can also go there, and we have forums, and we have other initiatives as well. In any case, we always welcome and appreciate new members, as well as any feedback that you may have. We, of course, are very welcoming of anyone, despite of career stage or discipline. And we even have an anonymous feedback form for you to give us any sort of feedback. In any case, thank you so much. This is our website, our email, our Twitter handle. And if you have the time, do take a look at our publications. There's quite a few goodies in there. And with that, I'll end the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, I just noticed that there's still like 20 minutes left, and I guess the audience are typing the questions in the Q&A. Maybe we need to wait 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah. And for the participants, please. Yeah, I just noticed there is a question. As a related note, the largest share of the reuse of the data currently published on QDR-IS for teaching, both substantive and methodological. And
I meant to say is for teaching, to emphasize that it is.
Okay.
That's the largest share of the reuse that we get. Again, just to put in perspective for people what kinds of things are possible within open science, also with an eye towards raising the next generation of scholars, right? There, the data could be used for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Recently, we had a project that is unrelated to FORRT, but we basically surveyed 69 nations on constructs or questions on moral psychology as well as political psychology. And we made it open and with everything, the code, reproducible, a reproducible report, just to make the point that, this is data for research, of course, but also as an open educational resource. So there's quite a lot of data that can be used for educating folks. However, at FORRT, we learned very quickly that it is not really enough to just have things open. There must be, for example, for data, a lot of documentation or onboarding documents, metadata, and etc. And an effort by the community to make it salient that it can be used for teaching and should be used for mentoring as well. Would you agree, Desi?
I was going to type, but absolutely. I was going to say our repository is curated. So when I say open data for us, that means something very specific, which also includes very well documented. Exactly. Otherwise, you're right. Just putting the data somewhere is certainly not sufficient. In fact, could become overwhelming in its own way for people who have to wade their way without any guideposts or, you know, opportunity to ask the original author. So agree 100% with what you're saying as well.
Thank you, Desi. And this also applies for open educational resources in general. So for example, at FORRT, we learned a lesson very early on that it doesn't, like, it's not that it doesn't matter, but lists of resources, for example, like the curated project, right? We were very, very excited about you know, enriching data of a list of resources with metadata, and you know, just making it, you know, we call it fair, findable, interoperable, you know. But that happens to be one of the least used resources, not because people don't use it, but it's because it's the least actionable. So what we try to do at FORRT is really, you know, with the lesson plans, with the glossary, with the summaries and everything, we try to walk with those who are wishing to learn and, you know, and take responsibility to uncumber whoever that is, students, citizens, researchers, and uncumber them from you know, the hard task of learning and the hard task of engaging with a research area across many fields that are you know, very complex, very intricate. So for sure, the insights of open data, because it's a huge field in of itself in computer science and science and technology, science and learning as well, that we need to sort of, you know, help those wishing to learn, basically, and provide as much as possible, every possible aid that we can, if we want to make the you know, this movement sustainable. Because in the end, you know, you need to educate your youngsters and transmit across your peers open scientific knowledge if you want it, you know, to just not to fade away in any time soon.
Okay, it seems that we still have 7 minutes to go. If you still have any questions, please feel free to ask them and type them in the chat box or Q&A box. Yeah.
FYI, I prepared a very large presentation. I timed it for 45 minutes. Somehow I ran. Did I talk too fast?
No, it's slightly good.
Yeah, everything was super clear. I'm just sort of jumping in to say that it was a really great presentation. And I think, you know, one of the sort of the reasons that I think is important for FORRT to introduce itself here to the community of, you know, to the community of applied linguists is that there is a lot for us to learn. I think there are a lot of wonderful initiatives, open scholarship that's out there, and FORRT is definitely one of the best ones. And you have just sort of lay out all the wonderful initiatives. I'm a huge fan of all of them, actually. So I think we can all sort of take a lot of food for thought and to think about what kind of things that we can do within the applied linguistics community and what kind of actions are needed. And, you know, so I'm sure people share my feelings, and everybody's welcome to sort of reach out to Flavio, reach out to us, you know, anytime, and we welcome all of your ideas and suggestions.
Okay.
I just wanted to second that, Mung, to say that I really appreciate FORRT, because I think for those of us who try to spread the open scholarship word, one of the things we find is that curation is the #1 challenge. There's so much out there. And so, and there's so many initiatives, and just having this service that collates and in fact makes these resources fair in the broader sense, right? I think that's invaluable. So I just wanted to say thank you again and cheer the initiative on. Say it's really great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I will post on the little chat there our links and an invite to join our community. There's quite some projects. I won't name names, but there's this one project on that is very ambitious and aims to sort of map the open scholarship across disciplines. It's a very promising project, and we need expertise when it comes to linguistics, when it comes to open scholarship as well. So I think this project will be very interesting and could use the help of some of the people interested into this field. And yeah, other than that, thank you so much. And if there's any questions, let me know, and I'll put all the information on the chat.